Here's what the Democrats are doing. Here's what some high-ranking Democrats are doing. I saw this story in the news, but we haven't talked about it on the show yet. So a Democratic lawmaker in Virginia holds a hammer and sickle image behind colleague aligned with Democratic Socialists. Who is that colleague? That colleague is Lee Carter, who's a freshman legislator who is also a member of the DSA. Oh, and Lee Carter, when he was running, the Democratic establishment told him he was too progressive and he needed to tone down his message or he couldn't win. And he said, no, ran on a super progressive platform anyway. And guess what he did? He freaking won. Where did he win? The South. He won in Virginia. You know who ran on a centrist platform and couldn't win in a county that Hillary barely lost? John Ossoff. John Ossoff, the centrist who ran on nothing, he lost. You know who won by being a progressive? Lee Carter in Virginia. So this whole argument of, oh, we got to get the moderate Republicans. Look, you give people the choice between a Republican and a Republican, they're going to choose the Republican. And, there's a race going on in Pennsylvania right now between Connor Lamb and the Republican. I forget the Republican's name, actually. And the only reason I'm vaguely familiar with that race is because I went to high school. I went to the same high school as Connor. And actually I have a friend or two that are working on his campaign. I don't know much about his politics, but I do know he is very moderate, and he's trying to get those moderate votes. I'd be surprised if that strategy works. Now, apparently his race is close. In this particular district, it might work. But I'd be surprised, Every now and again, I'll talk to my dad about local politics going on there, even though I'm an outsider looking in because I haven't lived in the city in years. But I just said, look, I just think that, if people are given a choice between a Republican and a Republican, they're going to go with the Republican. So we'll see what happens here. All right, but back to this particular story. We all know that Lee won, and we all know how he won. A Democratic lawmaker apologized Monday after jokingly holding up a hammer and sickle image behind Delegate Lee Carter, a freshman legislator who's also a member of the DSA. Delegate Markeem Fairfax also apologized on the House floor. During a debate on legislation to offer tax breaks to companies that create jobs in economically depressed area, Carter said the bill may be a good faith effort to help combat poverty, but it relies on a deeply flawed mechanism. That mechanism of racing to the bottom of cutting and hacking and slashing away at our tax code to try to fight over scraps and handouts from billionaires rather than trying to build the economy from the ground up will actually help the people that are already here. Sitting behind Carter, Keem can be seen shaking his head and laughing at the comments. After about a minute of looking at his tablet, Keem briefly lifted up the screen while smiling. He apologized on the House floor shortly afterwards, saying his conduct may have violated a House rule suggesting using any language or gesture calculated to wound, offend, or insult another member. Keem said lawmakers sometimes go overboard in attempts at humor. Can you give me an example of that, Keem? Since when do lawmakers on the floor engage in bouts of humor? How often do we see that happen? I'm thinking we've seen that in the year 20 never. I'm thinking that never happens, Keem. I'm thinking that you're just trying to justify you being a douchebag. I don't even think you were trying to be fun. Oh, he has this dumb smirk on his face. I'd rather our comedians become lawmakers than the opposite. Well, how about the lawmakers actually do something funny or original? We sometimes really go overboard on the... I mean, haven't you ever watched C-SPAN? It's like a comedy show. You got to pause it every 10 seconds because everyone's laughing so much. Like when they're reading a bill, they have all those punchlines in there. It's freaking hilarious. Sometimes we just go overboard. And by sometimes, I mean never. And by overboard, I mean what I did, because I was trying to be funny, and I just came off as a McCarthyist douchebag. Congressman Ron Placone and Senator Jimmy Dore, I'm on board with that. I am not. I do not want to be a congressman. That sounds like that'd be... I mean, I guess the healthcare and vacation time wouldn't be bad, but other than that, Al Franken was a comedian. He was. That's true. If incompetence is funny, Peter Dow is Hillary us. See what you did there, Sake, and I appreciate it. And in fairness, Peter Dow is one of my favorite comedians. I've been saying that for a long time. It's still the truth. Like Peter Dow is our Andy Kaufman. You know, I mean, it's very unique what he's doing. You know, most comedians you kind of punch up, right? Peter Dow, he is committed to only punching down and only for the Democratic establishment. It's a very unique niche brand of comedy, but it's very unique. So I guess there are exceptions to that rule. Whenever I see Peter Dow's tweets, which I don't get to because he blocked me, but whenever I see screenshots, I mean, I am just laughing my ass off. He is hilarious. If you haven't checked out Peter Dow, he used to be a jazz musician, but he failed at jazz. Jazz was not the right art form for him. And honestly, calling that jazz, it's more like basically easy listening elevator music that they kind of call jazz to sound cool. But he failed at that. But man, when it comes to comedy, he found his calling. If I could be as funny as him, I'll tell you what. I'd have a more professional setup. You prefer Peter Douche? Well, you know what? We need Peter Douche to counter the comedian Peter Dow. Of course, Peter Douche is the political strategist that Peter Dow is based off of. Did you actually listen to his music? No, admittedly, I didn't. I just saw the cover, and that said enough for me. I think I did. I actually did listen to a 30-second snippet. And it was exactly how I described. Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.